Welcome to another heinous true crime story. Please be advised, this story may contain graphic descriptions of unsettling subjects. Joel David Rifkin, born on January 20, 1959, in New York City, would grow up to become one of the most prolific serial killers in the state's history. His early life gave little indication of the horrors he would later commit. Adopted as an infant by Bernard and Jean Rifkin, Joel was raised in a middle-class home in East Meadow, Long Island. Despite this seemingly normal upbringing, Rifkin struggled socially and academically throughout his childhood and adolescence, often being the target of bullying due to his awkward demeanor and poor athletic abilities. As Rifkin entered adulthood, his social difficulties persisted. He attended the State University of New York at Brockport but dropped out after only 2 semesters. His attempts at relationships with women were largely unsuccessful, leading him to increasingly seek out the company of sex workers. This pattern of behavior would eventually evolve into a deadly obsession that would claim the lives of at least 17 women. Rifkin's descent into murder began in 1989 when he picked up his first victim, Heidi Balch, a sex worker he had encountered in New York City. The exact details of their interaction remain unclear, but what is known is that Rifkin strangled Balch to death in his home in East Meadow. This murder set the pattern for Rifkin's M.O., which he would refine and repeat over the next 4 years. After killing Balch, Rifkin faced the problem of disposing of her body. In a gruesome display of cold calculation, he dismembered her corpse in the bathtub of his family home, using an X-Acto knife to remove her teeth and fingertips to hinder identification. He then scattered her remains across several locations in New Jersey and upstate New York. This meticulous method of body disposal would become a hallmark of Rifkin's crimes, demonstrating a level of planning and forethought that allowed him to evade detection for years. Emboldened by his ability to commit murder without consequence, Rifkin's killing spree escalated. He continued to target sex workers, picking them up in his pickup truck or Mazda sedan, usually in New York City's Lower East Side or near Penn Station. Rifkin's vehicle became a mobile chamber of horrors, where he would strangle his victims, often using their own clothing as a ligature. The act of strangulation became Rifkin's preferred method of murder. He would later describe the process in chilling detail to investigators, recounting how he would wrap his hands or a ligature around his victims' necks, applying pressure until they lost consciousness and eventually died. The intimate nature of this killing method spoke to Rifkin's desire for control and dominance over his victims. As the body count rose, Rifkin refined his post-murder routine. He would often keep the bodies of his victims in his vehicle for days, storing them in the wheel well of his pickup truck or in the back of his Mazda. During this time, he would continue with his daily life, running errands and interacting with family members, all while harboring his gruesome secret. When it came time to dispose of the bodies, Rifkin showed a disturbing level of creativity and resourcefulness. He would dismember some of his victims, placing body parts in buckets or barrels before dumping them in various locations across New York State. Other times, he would weigh down the bodies and sink them in rivers or the East River. In one particularly horrifying instance, he stuffed a victim's torso into an oil drum, which he then filled with concrete and dumped in a Brooklyn creek. Rifkin's victims came from various backgrounds, but most were sex workers struggling with drug addiction. This choice of victim allowed Rifkin to operate undetected for years, as many of the women he killed were already living on the margins of society. Their disappearances often went unreported or uninvestigated, allowing Rifkin to continue his deadly spree. Among Rifkin's victims was Tiffany Bresciani, a 22-year-old aspiring actress who had turned to sex work to support her drug habit. Rifkin picked her up in Manhattan in June 1993, strangled her, and kept her body in his mother's garage for 3 days before attempting to dispose of it. This would prove to be Rifkin's undoing. On June 28, 1993, state troopers spotted Rifkin driving his pickup truck without license plates on the Southern State Parkway. When they attempted to pull him over, Rifkin led them on a high-speed chase that ended when he crashed into a utility pole. As the troopers approached the vehicle, they detected a foul odor emanating from the truck. Upon investigation, they discovered Bresciani's decomposing body in the truck bed, wrapped in a tarp. Rifkin's arrest marked the end of his 4-year killing spree, but it was only the beginning of the gruesome revelations that would shock the public and law enforcement alike. During his interrogation, Rifkin confessed to killing 17 women, providing details about his crimes that only the killer could know. As investigators delved deeper into Rifkin's life and crimes, a picture emerged of a man who had lived a double life. By day, he was a landscaper and sometimes helped in his brother's tropical fish business. By night, he prowled the streets, seeking out vulnerable women to satisfy his murderous urges. Rifkin's trial began in 1994, and the prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against him. His own confessions, combined with physical evidence recovered from various dump sites, painted a damning picture. Despite attempts by his defense team to argue that Rifkin was mentally ill and not responsible for his actions, the jury found him guilty. On May 9, 1994, Joel Rifkin was sentenced to 203 years to life for the murder of 9 women. This sentence effectively ensured that Rifkin would spend the rest of his life behind bars. However, this was not the end of Rifkin's legal troubles. In the years that followed, he faced additional trials for his other victims, resulting in more life sentences. The aftermath of Rifkin's arrest and conviction left a lasting impact on the communities he had terrorized. Families of his victims, many of whom had been searching for their loved ones for years, finally had answers, though the closure came at a terrible cost. The case also highlighted the vulnerability of sex workers and other marginalized individuals, prompting discussions about how society and law enforcement could better protect these at-risk populations. In prison, Rifkin has granted several interviews over the years, providing disturbing insights into his mindset and motivations. He has claimed that his murderous impulses stemmed from a deep-seated anger and resentment towards women, particularly his mother. However, mental health professionals have cautioned against taking Rifkin's self-analysis at face value, noting that many of his statements seem calculated to garner attention or sympathy. Rifkin's crimes also had a profound effect on his adoptive family. His mother, who had unknowingly lived in the same house where her son committed some of his murders, was devastated by the revelations. The Rifkin family home, once a quiet suburban residence, became infamous, a silent witness to the horrors that had occurred within its walls. The case of Joel Rifkin serves as a stark reminder of the potential for evil that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary facades. His ability to commit heinous crimes while maintaining a semblance of a normal life demonstrates the challenges law enforcement faces in identifying and apprehending serial killers. Rifkin's M.O., characterized by strangulation, dismemberment, and scattered body disposal, has been studied extensively by criminologists and forensic experts. His methods, while gruesome, provided valuable insights into the behavior patterns of serial killers, contributing to the development of more sophisticated investigative techniques. Today, Joel Rifkin remains incarcerated, serving his multiple life sentences. His name has become synonymous with the dark underbelly of New York in the late 1980s and early 1990s, a time when the city was grappling with high crime rates and the devastating impact of the crack cocaine epidemic. Rifkin's crimes, targeting some of society's most vulnerable members, exposed the dangers that lurked in the shadows of the city's streets. The legacy of Joel Rifkin's crimes continues to resonate, serving as a cautionary tale about the potential for evil that can exist within seemingly ordinary individuals. His case has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and television programs, each attempting to understand the mind of a killer who, for 4 years, brought terror to the streets of New York. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. Please remember to like the video, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.